Many people have asked, how does running from Cape Town to Cairo reduce poverty in Africa? What's the link? Firstly, young people on our continent overwhelmingly do not vote. From discussions we've had, they are disillusioned with leadership. They feel hopeless in that there aren't enough employment and career opportunities, and many of them are stuck in a vicious cycle of abject poverty and the ignorance that often comes with no access to reliable internet and to education and language. That means that the vast majority of votes are cast by older people. You can see this if you look at the statistics in South Africa, more specifically, that older people are submitting almost 3/4 of the votes. So whilst the older group of people are submitting 3/4 of the votes, they only represent about half of the population. That means that only 1/4 of the votes are coming from the other half. So that I help a little bit with the maths, that means to balance things out, we need 3 times as many people in the younger group to vote. What does your vote have to do with poverty? Well, right now, we don't have enough investment coming into our countries. Why is that? A lack of trust. Investors are very keen to invest in growing African population groups. What stops them? A deficit of trust. They're not sure that leaders in the countries can be trusted to stick with the existing regulations that they have, to create regulatory frameworks that are helpful to their investment. We have a small fraction of the investment that we could otherwise obtain if investors trusted our leaders. Why don't they trust our leaders? Well, you can see the answer within our own populations, and that's seen in the voting numbers from the young people. It seems that older voters are more emotional and brand loyal in terms of casting their vote, whilst younger voters are far more pragmatic. They want employment. They want career opportunities. They want to lift themselves out of poverty. They have hopes and dreams, and they just want to know that there will be enough investment coming into the country so that it will create jobs for them. Young people, from our discussions, overwhelmingly don't seem to trust the leaders that have been elected. Not by them, because they don't vote. At rainbowleaders.org.za, our message to young people is, you have to participate in democracy if you want to elect better leaders. It is unacceptable to complain that there are no good leaders and nobody you trust when you are disengaged from the whole process of democracy, because the alternative to democracy is ultimately revolution and war, and that is a dreadful road to go down. We have the democratic tools in front of us in many African countries, and we just need our young people to use them. So how do you reduce poverty? You need to reduce unemployment first. People who have jobs are generally not in poverty. People who don't have jobs are generally in poverty. So creating more jobs means we need to grow the economy faster than the population grows. If we look again at South Africa, population growth was only 1.7% per year over the last 10 or so years. That is not a high growth rate to chase. If we delivered growth of perhaps 3% a year, that would have meant that we would have reduced unemployment, which would have reduced poverty very significantly. If South Africa had grown its economy by 1.5% more for the last 30 years, that is only 1.5% more than it did over the last 30 years, our economy would be about 56% larger than it is now. In terms of tax revenues, that means that our tax base would not be 2 trillion rand. It would be more like 3.2 trillion rand. An extra 1.2 trillion rand. Imagine how many jobs that would create. As the economy grows, the tax revenue also grows. By running from Cape Town to Cairo, we try to create a platform for rainbowleaders.org.za to have discussions with young people in South Africa and in other African countries in future, to convince them that the only route to economic growth and prosperity is to make sure that young people now take control of their countries through democratic elections, electing leaders, holding them accountable, to focus all their energy on growing the economy. And they can do that if they can just build long-term trust with potential investors.